And welcome everyone. I am Adesewa Josh and this is Africa Matters. This week we focus on children caught in the crossfire in Cameroon's English-speaking regions as a conflict between separatists and the government rages. We'll also take you to Malawi, where almost half of all girls are married before the age of 18. A local female chief is trying to change traditions. And then we head to Nigeria, where parents faced a difficult choice of paying ransoms for the return of their children or obeying government orders. A separatist crisis that began 5 years ago in Cameroon's English-speaking regions has spiraled into a protracted civil war. The UN says the conflict has displaced more than 700,000 people and an estimated 4,000 have been killed. The dispute had been simmering for decades, but it boiled over in 2016 when teachers and lawyers started protesting against the use of French in schools and courts. Anglophone Cameroonians make up 20% of the population, and they accuse the government of trying to erode their regional autonomy. The English-speaking region of Cameroon was a British colony. It was known as the British Southern Cameroons, located in the west of what is now modern-day Cameroon and bordered by Nigeria. In 1961, its residents voted in a UN referendum to join Cameroon, a former French colony, and form the Federal Republic of Cameroon. The federation was scrapped 11 years later in a controversial referendum by President Amadou Ahidjo. The abolition of this federal structure lies at the core of the Anglophone crisis. Last year, President Paul Biya called for a national dialogue and held the country's first regional elections. But many people, including the opposition, boycotted both the dialogue and the polls, calling them a sham. The government also granted special status to the Northwest and Southwest English-speaking regions. But separatists want their own independent state called Ambazonia. And as the crisis drags on, school children have become targets. Arison Tamfu reports about how some children are surviving in Boya, the capital of one of the English-speaking regions.
Emile Fortua was just an infant when fighting broke out in Cameroon's English-speaking regions in 2017 between separatist groups wanting independence and government forces. A year later, he watched his father and brother being tortured and killed.
They caught my brother here and they buried him. And my father, they shot him in his head. They shot him in his 2 legs and then they cut his ears and they cut his head. And then they buried him. I was feeling so angry that I'll get revenge when I grow up. It's my mother told me, I forget about revenge and take over my future.
Like Emile, Hans Ajekito has lived through the horror. He was playing with his friends when a stray bullet shattered his right hand. 3 of his friends were killed on the spot.
There was blood coming up on my hand. So they took me to the hospital. I was unconscious. So when I got up, they told me that some of my friends were dead. I was crying the whole day. I told them that they could not die, but that I was supposed to be the one to die. They should live.
Such stories are ordinary everyday events in Cameroon's Anglophone regions, where relentless shooting and violence are taking a devastating toll on children. The government says more than 800,000 children are not attending school, and 150,000 others are internally displaced. Emile and several other children now find comfort and shelter at the Aya Foundation, run by the son of a former politician.
When the crisis came up, he saw what was happening to our people, our children, our widows, and he decided to create the foundation. There was need to sacrifice, to offer to help people in difficulty. They are all going to school.
The children now live relatively normal lives, but some of them are showing signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. Doctors say children here need psychiatric help, but there are only 4 hospitals in the region that offer such treatment. So, playing is the only way many of the children can try and cope with the scars of the armed conflict. Every day, the children sing praises to God and recite the Bible.
We don't want people to be dying every day and night. We just want peace.
1,000 may fall dead beside you.
They pray for an end to the civil war sometime soon. Arisin Tamfo, TRT World, Buea, Cameroon.
Agbo Nkongo is a human rights lawyer. He was also a leading member of the outlawed Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium, which led the initial wave of protest against the government. He joins me from Toronto, Canada. Thank you so much for making out time. Nkongo, thousands of women and children are the ones bearing the brunt of this conflict. Do you regret the human cost of this conflict?
Well, it's unfortunate what's happening to our people. It's unfortunate the number of people who have been killed, houses that have been burned, kids who cannot go to school. Well, that is not what we intended for our people. We started a peaceful protest against the marginalization of our people. It was only when we were arrested and went to jail that the struggle morphed to an armed conflict. So nobody had a crystal ball. I believe that if the government had met the demands of the Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium, if the government had respected us as a people to have an agreement, we would not be where we are today.
Anglophone separatists are demanding independence as a precondition to end hostilities. The government has offered a series of solutions except independence. Why do you think that is, and how can this be resolved?
Well, what the government has put in place, to me personally, is not something that I think it's enough. The government has given a special status, talks about decentralization, but these were things that were in the Constitution of 1996, which was amended in 2018. So imagine that we've had a struggle for 4 to 5 years, and government still gives us what was in the Constitution prior to the crisis. So to me, nothing much has been done. The separatists also are like separation or nothing, and because of historical antecedents, they don't trust the government. There is mistrust between both parties. There is a need for both parties to come together, have a genuine discussion, negotiation, and then arrive at a win-win strategy. For one, I believe that a federation would be the panacea. There are those in the separatist movement who vehemently disagree with me. There are those in government who vehemently equally disagree with me. But I think that be it federation, be it separation or whatever, there is the need for us to talk to each other, not talking across each other. There is a need for us to find a holistic solution, because this death of women, children, and our young men, it's not good for anyone. I think it's very unfortunate for the peoples of Southern Cameroon.
So basically, you're saying that it is communication and negotiation that's likely to resolve this crisis. Tell us about the strategic economic importance of the Anglophone region to the rest of the country, and if it has anything to do with why it's a tough call for the central government to allow the region to break away.
Well, the Anglophone regions, so we call them the Southern Cameroon region, it's very rich, it's very blessed, especially the southern zone where you have the oil, the timber, the cocoa, you have the sea, we have a long stretch of border with Nigeria, which is also a strategic partner. And in terms of human resources also, the Southern Cameroonians are have a lot of human resources, very highly educated in the diaspora at back home. And yes, that's a reason, one of the reasons also. But I think the government looks at it from the fact about this territorial integrity and sovereignty, and doesn't want to cede part of its land. But to me, it's not about territorial sovereignty. It's not about territorial integrity. It's not about the economics. But I think that it's the welfare of the people, because protection of civilians should be the cardinal objective of both the government and the armed separatists. So it's important that we look at a solution that would be win-win, that would be accommodating and comfortable to each and everyone. That is the only way forward. This current situation cannot work. We cannot survive as a vibrant country in this dispensation of decentralization. And I also equally believe that there is a need for the separatists also to try to tone down their demands, to try to be realistic, taking in consideration also some of the aspirations of the people in Southern Cameroon, who might be a minority, who don't want separation and who don't want this violence to continue.
Agbong Congo, a human rights lawyer, thank you so much for your brilliant analysis and contribution on Africa Matters. Still ahead on Africa Matters.
Malawi has one of the world's highest rates of child marriages, with half of all girls married before age of 18. But one traditional leader in the district in central Malawi, where I am, is on a mission to reverse that trend.
I am Darren Alan Cheyune in central Uganda, and I'll tell you about a social enterprise startup in Kampala that's working towards cleaner air in the capital through e-mobility by making petrol motorbikes electric.
Welcome back. African leaders and campaigners are urging the international community to foot more of the climate crisis bill. The UN says the African continent is responsible for about 3% of global emissions, yet it's currently bearing the brunt of the global heating. The head of the African Union, Congolese President Félix Tshisekedi, says other parts of the world should contribute at least half of the $25 billion that the continent needs to adapt to changing temperatures over the next 5 years.
The Accelerated Adaptation Program in Africa is a crucial mechanism that is expected to deploy a significant portion of the $100 billion a year promised to developing countries. While we are discussing adaptation and resilience, we also need to protect Africa's forests and oceans that serve as natural carbon sinks. It is time for Africa to be compensated for the good of the planet.
We head to Uganda, where one local startup is trying to clear the air by changing how people get around. Air pollution in Uganda's capital, Kampala, is more than 10 times above what the World Health Organization considers safe. But Darren Alan Cheyune reports about a company that's trying to move many of Kampala's residents in a more environmentally friendly way.
Commonly referred to as boda boda, these motorbikes form the fabric of Uganda's transport system. About 250,000 of them fill Kampala's streets, and fumes from their petrol engines fill the air. But a social enterprise is building an environmentally friendly solution by making this boda boda battery-powered.
There's a unique opportunity in the two-wheeler sector due to a large number of the same vehicles being used here locally. But electric mobility is important because it offers us the opportunity to have productive use of energy while, yes, saving our climate or possibly substituting our oil imports.
Bodavec upcycles smaller used batteries and integrates them with Bluetooth monitors into special casings designed by local manufacturers. The final product is rechargeable and can last up to 10 years depending on usage. A battery like this has a capacity of 4,600 watt-hours and can power a motorbike for about 100 kilometers. Recharging it costs less than $1.50. That relatively low cost has been a big driver for new interest.
This electric bike of mine is easy for me to ride, easy for me to maintain, because I don't need to replace pistons, buy carburetors, buy rings, and above all, it is silent. Silent to my ears and silent to prevent noise pollution to the environment.
East Africa has an estimated 5 million motorcycles, and according to the UN Environment Programme, a fast global switch to electric bikes could prevent up to 11 billion tons of carbon emissions by 2050. But environmental activists warn that this kind of energy shift will require more effort and time.
I'm so happy that there's such a group and of young people trying to do that. Definitely it will
caused some good effect, some impact, but the only thing is that it is very, very small compared to all the types of transportation we have in the country. My only worry is that starting such a thing in this country, you need to create a lot of awareness. You need to teach the people.
The Bodavec team is ready to lead that charge for change. It has built up to 100 electric vehicles within 2 years and hopes to scale up production across East Africa. Darren Alan Cheyune, TRT World, Kampala.
In Malawi, a community leader has set herself a goal to end child marriage. Malawi has one of the world's highest numbers of child brides. Half of all teenage girls marry before their 18th birthday, and nearly 1 in 8 is wed by the age of 15. Chief Teresa Kachidamoto has so far rescued more than 2,500 girls from early marriages. Lamek Masina traveled to the Desda district and filed this report.
Tribal Chief Teresa Kachidamoto began cracking down on child marriages in the Desda district in central Malawi just a week after she became a chief in 2003. The former secretary at the theological college and a mother of 5 boys was sick of seeing girls as young as 14 years with babies. Her first step was to approach village chiefs in her area of nearly 1 million people. She later introduced bylaws to abolish early marriage and are now existing unions. All 500 village chiefs agreed to sign.
Then I told them that I want to start to terminate these marriages, whether you like it or not. They said, oh, but you must be careful, because some of them, they can kill you. I said, I don't care. If they kill me, God will receive me with 2 hands. But I can't allow this thing to continue.
Doubled the terminator of child marriages, Kachidamoto also pays school fees for these girls. But her success met resistance.
Chief Kachidamoto's aim is for teenage girls to return to school and finish their education. And if anyone gets their way, she deals with them swiftly. Recently firing 2 traditional chiefs for defying bylaws she formulated to end child marriage.
After they apologized, Kachidamoto reinstated them and gave them roles in her fight against brides.
It was so embarrassing to lose my chieftaincy, and now in my village, no girl below the age of 18 is getting married. Even my fellow small chiefs, I'm warning them against allowing early marriages so they don't face the punishment I faced.
Kachidamoto's efforts have given the girls hope of living their childhood dreams.
Now the issue is to work hard in class, and I'm sure that I'll live my dream. I've long wished to work as a nurse, and now that I've returned to school, I'll live this dream.
Kachidamoto's efforts are recognized through awards from local and international organizations. But with unemployment rate rising in the country, Kachidamoto's efforts have faced opposition from parents of girls rescued from child marriage who are challenging the importance of education.
The challenges which I'm facing is that when they finish the school, they are just still staying with their parents. So one day I was shocked. They came with about 222 girls to lift them here.
But to address that challenge, Kachidamoto is now approaching prospective employers and vocational training institutions to consider recruiting girls from her area. Lamek Masina, TRT World, Data.
As the fight to prevent child marriage goes on in Malawi, parents in Nigeria are trying to rescue their children from kidnappers. The World Bank says 71% of Nigerians live on just over $3 a day, but kidnappers are demanding millions of dollars in ransom for the release of abducted children in northwestern Nigeria. The demands have forced parents to brace the payments they can't afford from all the sources they can find, as Polom David reports.
48-year-old Esther Joseph is a widow and a mother of 1. In July, she was told that her daughter was one of the 120 children kidnapped by armed gunmen from their boarding school in Kaduna, northwestern Nigeria.
I think among the 5th or 4th I was the fourth or fifth parent that arrived at the school to look for my child. I even urinated on my body out of fear because on my way to the school, I had called the principal, 3 staff members, and a matron. None of them answered their phones. When I got to the school, I couldn't find my child. I had to enter the bushes to look for her, but some farmers had to call me back, saying the gunmen had already gotten away.
Who says the parent?
Fortunately, all but 11 children have been released by the kidnappers. Esther's 14-year-old daughter was one of them and has been reunited with her mother after she paid ransom of more than $1,000.
I sold my deep freezer and my television. I also borrowed some money from different sources. Some gave me 50,000, some 20,000, some 5,000, some 2,000. And when I managed to raise all the money, I paid and my child was released.
Nigerian government case against the payment of ransom for the release of abducted children. But parents have argued that they cannot fold their hands and watch gunmen kill their children if they fail to provide the ransom. The 13-year-old daughter of Reverend Jubrelu Wobia was among those kidnapped. He says being a full-time pastor, he relied entirely on church members to help him pay the ransom.
No, I don't have anything apart from the pastoral work that I'm doing. But I thank God because we have the members. So I called some of our members, they helped in raising some money that is the bandits are demanding.
Nigeria ranks second in the global top 10 of the Costello's overall kidnap for ransom risk scale after the United States. Some lawmakers are trying to introduce a law into parliament to criminalizing any payment of a ransom to kidnappers, threatening a 15-year jail term. But critics say it is immoral, impractical, and almost impossible to enforce. Polum David, TRT World, Kaduna, Nigeria.
And now for a roundup of what's making news across the continent. Dozens of people have been killed and dozens more are still missing after a building collapsed in Nigeria's economic hub, Lagos. Many of those believed to be trapped are construction workers. The building was part of a luxury apartment complex in an upscale neighborhood. The state government says it has put its chief architect on indefinite suspension and launched an independent investigation into the cause of the collapse. Authorities in Addis Ababa have declared a nationwide state of emergency and are calling on residents to defend their neighborhoods should Tigrayan rebels advance on the capital. The U.S. has urged the rebels not to try to take Addis Ababa, which has a population of more than 5 million people. Thousands of civilians have been killed and more than 2.5 million people have fled their homes since the war began a year ago. And third time lucky, South African author Damon Galgut has won the Booker Prize for his novel, The Promise. It's his 9th novel and it follows the Swartz, a white South African family who live on a farm outside Pretoria. They promised to give a home and land to the black woman who has worked for them her whole life, but failed to keep that promise over 4 decades. Galgut was previously nominated for the prize in 2003 and 2010. Before we wrap the show, let's take a look at what some of you had to say about the stories we've covered. On Turkey-Africa ties, Ismail Assad says Turkey would be much fairer than other players in Africa because Turkey will not trap it in debt. And Hiral Humbal says, go Africa, you have your own whole continent full of resources. Go utilize it and show the world you matter. Thanks for all the comments and please keep them coming. And then now to our African City Profile of the Week, we go to Port Sudan. That's our show this week. Kindly share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode, or ideas on what you would like us to cover on Twitter using the hashtag #AfricaMatters. Feel free to reach out to me on my personal handle at Adesewa Josh for scoops, breaking news, or a story you would like us to investigate. We'll leave you with images from our beautiful continent.